For the first person, we have a form for below. So this is when you're speaking to those that are below you on the hierarchy of rationality. And I know that sounds a bit weird. It is what it is. And then you use the form satan, which has a fascinating etymology. YouTube, welcome back. We are about to jump back into the Biirai language, and we are about to complete the pronoun system and start to write some little sentences, I think. I think that's probably a good plan, don't you? Let's scoot over in and let's see what we have. We don't have a velar nasal. Quanti asks, do we have the ng sound? We don't have it, although I would imagine if you have the coronal nasal before a velar, it would assimilate. So that's roughly the state of affairs in that part of the mouth. Sparsh, we have been working on the pronoun system of the Biirai fanservice language. Okay, so we've established that so we have 5 genders. To catch up those who are watching newly on YouTube as well, this is pretty useful. We have 5 genders that proceed down a scale. There's a kind of a hierarchy in terms of how rational they're considered. And so we've taken a little bit of a page out of Tamil's book in dividing nouns into rational and irrational. And then within each of these broad categories, we've invented new distinctions. So we have deities and humans in the rational supergender, and animals, objects, and abstract nouns in the irrational supergender. And essentially what happens is, for the first and second person pronouns, if you're talking to a noun, or you're talking to a thing whose gender is above on this hierarchy of rationality, then you use a particular form. If you're talking to someone who is below, and realistically this would be when a god is speaking to a human, or a human is speaking to an animal, then you would use this below form. So we currently have in the second person pronouns, we have two kinds. We have the kind used when talking to someone who's above you in the chain of rationality. So you would use Biirai in that case, which derives perhaps from a word meaning perfect. If you're talking to someone who's equal to you in the hierarchy of rationality, you would use Kaurin. And if you are talking for them, you would use Kaurin for them. So you would say, how are Biirai? How are you, Biirai? If you're talking to a god. If you're talking to another person, you would say, how are you? And you would be Kaurin, something like that. And for the first person, we have a form for below. So this is when you're speaking to those that are below you on the hierarchy of rationality. And I know that sounds a bit weird. It is what it is. So, and then you use the form satan, which has a fascinating etymology. All right. So that's where we are. And we just need to fill in the blanks. We also have third person forms, one for each gender. We've only put in yan for the gender B, which refers to in which all humans go. And so this is just the word for a person. So I think we need to take the plan is basically to take words, lexical words that mean something like deity, human, or deity, person, animal, and then use those as the basis for the pronoun. The idea is that they would be reduced forms of the actual word, in some cases at least. So we needed one for God. I think based on the phonological characteristics, I would love for the word for deity to start with z. I think, I see Thomas is of the same mind. So, and I think because we did have Zelda say there's no meaning assigned, we can put in deity here. So, no, don't let it go to your head. But there it is. And then we could have zai be the pronoun. Sisru could be the third person humble, or the the third person or the second person, because we don't distinguish humility when we're referring to the different third person pronouns, only in the first and second, because only in the first and second is there an addressee speaker relationship. Zai is already an article. Interesting. Well, looks like we have some homophony. That's going to be fun. Can sawi be either a humble or proud pronoun? Sure. Let's make it into... We can have it be the first humble. Sawi. Now. Echo's asking for now as a word for the language. Yeah, let's put in now as... Maybe it's one of these... It's gender D or E. Now, like that. Oh, can now be first across? Sure. Sawi now, Satan, Biirai, Kaurin, and... Okay. Moon Truther's asking, shouldn't there be no A1 humble? So the first and second persons do not distinguish gender explicitly. There's no gender for first... There's no pronoun for gender A in the first person. All you care about in the first person is your relationship, the relationship between you and the addressee. So that means there's always the potential of being humble. A god would never use sawi. A god would always use now or satan, depending on if the god's speaking to gods or anything else. Excuse me there. A brief hydration break. Well, hello, Lucy. Welcome to the chat. All right. So, let's continue. I don't know why I deleted all those forms. It was probably silly of me. Okay, we need a few more pronouns here. What do we have? We have siyuri for owl. Maybe we derive the animal pronoun from that, si. So zai, yan, si. And then for objects, I'm content to just take from the generator here because it's not super clear how we would... Maybe something like do for D, and for abstract nouns, nan. So we have zai, yan, si, du, nan. All right. Chorizo is... yeah, may I be able to suggest another... Schwash? Yeah, we could try and adapt that. I also saw a suggestion in here. So let's... How are we going to adapt that? Louse. Oh my goodness. Using the word for louse as the second... You louse. Oh, that's amazing. That's... This... This language is getting crazy. Okay. Okay, so let's catch up on a few things. I hope I haven't missed anyone's names as things have been coming by. Magnus. So we need to... I've put in things that I've seen from the chat, but I haven't yet caught up on all of them. So Magnus, we need an adaptation. Let's go to the phonology. Let's see what we can do. So we have m, we have a, we have k, we have mak. We could do maknasi. That would work. Maknasi. Or maknusi. Maknus. I think that might be a bit better. Maknusi. Oh yeah, there is a G. What am I doing? Magnusi. Excellent. Magnas doesn't work because we don't allow S in the coda. All right. Echo's asking, can we have stim included into this language as well? Sure, let's do that and have it mean movement. All right, so how would we do that? If we want stim, we could do sitim. I think it would be sitim because we can't have that cluster st. Ah, yes, but we don't allow G in the coda. That's why it's maknusi. Ah, okay, I had some thought. I had some thought behind that, even though I didn't recognize it myself. Yeah, and you're absolutely right that sisiru We need this E in here. Actually, no, we don't technically need it because it could break as C-through. Because we have this R allowed in the coda, in the onset, branching onset. C-through. Right. We could do Maganusi for Magnus. That's true as well. If Magnus, if you prefer the Magnusi or Maganusi, let me know. Is Sr filtered? Oh yeah, I did filter Sr here. That's not necessarily, I just didn't want to see any Sr at the time. It's not a grammatical restriction necessarily. Just something I was thinking about. I'm happy to have Sr. Sisru. Okay. All right. Echo's asking, can it be movements plural? Let's see. We have a pluralclitic. Maybe it can be just like the abstract idea of movement, not a particular movement. Whatever it is, it will definitely be in gender E. I mean, gender is probably the wrong word for this system, but let's say noun class. NC noun class. And let's put it into E. And I realize that I have put this in the wrong spot. Okay. There we go. Thomas, you're still trying to figure out the syllable structure. Yeah, I can identify. So essentially what it is, you can have a long vowel or diphthong as the nucleus. You can also have a short vowel plus coda as the nucleus. You can also have a long vowel plus coda as the nucleus. So there are, maybe it's easier, it's a little less confusing to write it like this. There we go. So the square brackets around this means that you have to choose one of these. And the angle brackets here, or sorry, in the parentheses here mean that you can optionally choose one of these. This is accurate. For the plural forms of the pronouns, could we fix the pluralclitic? Too many L's and R's in that sentence. The pluralclitic, yes. I think that's what we could do. Maybe ira could be the pluralclitic as well. Maybe instead of an honorific, it could be the pluralclitic. So you could do something like yanira for they, humans. Yeah, I kind of like that. And you have correctly identified the utter lack of paying attention to the syllable structure that I have been engaged in recently. So thank you, Thomas. So plural and a sort of honorific. Yeah, something like that. Because the notion of plural and honorification are quite tightly tied in some languages, at least. Okay, so we have a pronoun system here. Let's see what else we can do. So we have a VSO language. And one thing that I was thinking of doing is having separate, we're going to stay on pronouns. See-through, thank you. Minki. And this one I haven't adapted yet. Patu could be patui. Sisinyu. Thank you to all of you for keeping me honest with the syllable structure. So I was thinking we could, sticking with the pronoun situation, we could have two types of pronouns. We could have independent and dependent. And what's the difference between these pronouns? Independent pronouns are used in isolation. Well, maybe it's easier to start with dependent. Dependent pronouns are used after a verb, so as the subject, and as a possessor. This is just something that happens in some languages, and I thought it'd be cool to include here. Specifically, I got the idea from one of our sources, Mishtek. I thought that was going to show the part of this article that has the pronoun. Here you go. So here you have the independent and the dependent pronouns, and you can see that the dependent forms are used when a pronoun follows a verb or when it follows a noun. So verb as a subject, noun as a possessor. So that's when we use the dependent forms. And I think what the dependent forms would be just really reduced forms of the full forms. So these would all be the full forms of the pronouns. And then we could have something like sawi go to we. Now would just be now. Satan could be tan. Sawi. Biirai could be rai. Kaurin could be rin. And tim would be tin. And keep in mind that these are clitics, so actually we should use the clitic separator. So yeah, then diachronically, maybe the dependent forms eventually derive into verb conjugations. So I've essentially taken the second syllables of these, but we don't have to. I think Cicinho is giving us a good suggestion that we could actually go brai for this one. And we could do, maybe we could take this needs an extra maybe we could take the first syllable and the last vowel. So si, san, kin, maybe. This is just making it up and having fun. I don't know that any language does that particular thing. But why not, right? And then these could stay the same. So then if this is the case, let's try out a verb. Let's try out a little sentence. Okay, so let's use the verb sitim. Sitim, actually I've said it's a noun here. Perhaps we have a free category language. I think that might make some sense. So a noun, any given root is not necessarily a verb or a noun or an adjective. A verb or a noun, let's say. Let's not talk about adjectives yet, if at all. And it's just the context in which that root occurs that tells you whether it's being used adjectively or nominally. All right, so given that, we would have a verb like sitim, meaning move. And then if we wanted to say I move, we would have to make a decision. Are we being humble, neutral, or proud? If we're being neutral, then we see sitim now. And this would be I move. How about that? Change the keyboard. And then we could also, I know we don't have a lot of affixation in this language, but one thing I saw from the, from the Jehoan language is that there is a little transitive marker. It's a bit small. There's a little transitive marker that I kind of like. I think we should use it. So maybe if you want to make move into a transitive verb, you could do something like sitim an. So this is making it transitive. I move you. I make you move, essentially. So then we have sitiman now, and then you. Interesting. I just realized something. This is kind of cool. If you're using now, then you have to use kaurin for the other person. If you're using sawi, then you have to use tim for the other person. Or did I get that backwards? Yeah. No, if you're using satan, then you have to use tim. If you're having sawi, you have to use... Wait, no, I'm confusing myself. How does it work? If you are using sawi, you are being humble. So then you would have to use biirai. So essentially you have to stay in one column in any given interaction. So sitiman now kaurin. So we can shorten this to tr. to newt. All right, so we have two sentences here. Sittim now, I move. Sittiman now kaurin, I move you. And it's this an which allows move to take an object. Maybe there are some roots which by default do not take objects. These are sort of intransitive, what's it called? Intransitive roots. And then there are some that do take an object by nature, and then you have to put a morpheme on them to make them not take an object. Let's take a little break here, because I notice the light has changed and I've got to make an adjustment. So, YouTube, thank you for joining us. Let's keep developing this language. This is a lot of fun. We'll see you next time.